Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court and appointed and private, marriage counseling, dissociative identity disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, and so much more. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Counseling and Therapy Services at 301-325-1550. Now, today, I'm very excited to have at our podcast a very special guest, Anthony Manzanet. Just like every other of my past episodes, we leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Anthony, the floor is yours, my friend.
How you doing? My name is Anthony Manzanet. I am 52 years old. I was born and raised in the South Bronx in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. I currently am a content creator and dealing with a lot of life issues and trying to get a better understanding and share my experiences while I'm doing it currently instead of reflecting back to previous episodes in your life.
So what would you say, Anthony, was the biggest challenge that you faced in your younger age?
Being honest.
Okay. If you care to elaborate.
Being honest. A man of principle. So you learn things from your parents and you learn things from your environment, which starts from your household. And the emphasis on dishonesty usually comes from lying, cheating, and stealing, which are the main dishonesties or the more common ones. But there's also other dishonesties, such as embellishment, such as omissions, leaving things out. And these things are important. So I feel like the level of parenting is very important to the point where they might not finish the job, or they'll give you some type of insight, but you yourself have to find and enlighten yourself on the other things and put it into practice, so to speak. So not being honest is something that I learned because that's what I saw. That's the experience that I saw and their choice of how to deal with everyday matters.
And you said that you went through a turmoil at in your younger years. And how did you decide to change your life, Anthony?
It took a long time. With the life that I chose, and I was young, a lot of people were telling me that I wasn't going to live a long life to begin with. So that being said, you don't create any vision. You don't have anything to look forward to. You don't have any goals. You don't set any goals because you keep hearing this thing constantly that, the life that you're living in, the area that you live in, not too many people are going to survive from that area, and you become a prisoner to that dilemma. And you have to find a way or a reason to be different, to allow yourself to surpass these things by focusing on yourself and learning how to love yourself.
Okay. And did you visualize who you wanted to become, Anthony? Or because of all the naysayers around you that were so negative that you were not allowed to, or not allowed yourself to be able to have a better life or a better perspective?
I had nothing to look forward to. I basically looked at myself as having a short lifespan. So it was kind of in the moment all the time, not making any goals. So when you live in the moment, you don't know what to do. You're confused. You don't have any direction. So you create moments and you end up inventing things and adding to the dishonesties that you grew up with. And then you end up encouraging yourself to do that because it's a sign of protecting yourself among the common elements in life.
Like a defense mechanism that you allowed to kind of just put yourself in a vision where you knew deep inside that there were probably no hope, but you still had to visualize to say, you know what, despite everything or everyone that's saying that I'm not going to be able to survive or I'm not going to be able to make it in this world, I will try to find a way. And then if you're so adamant about it, you can make it happen.
Absolutely. I agree 100%, but it also depends on how deep this goes, what path. And I look at it like this. If I had to unpeel the orange, you unpeel the orange and you make it nice and clean, and then you dissect all the little parts of the orange, nice and clean, and then you enjoy the fruit. You enjoy the fruit by understanding where your reservations and where your problems come from. I had a lot of anger and a lot of resentment because I feel as though my parents did not do an adequate job. Uh, I also feel like they did not continue to work on themselves, that they were very stagnant and very comfortable with the life that they were living, and I was never comfortable with that. Um, that being said, I was looking into other places and to do other things that I wasn't getting from home. Uh, and in the environment where I was at, it was very challenging because as I was walking to school, some of the people that I knew or were familiar with would question, why would you go to school and show me, wads of money walking towards the school and say, hey, you could be doing this in 1 minute. You could be doing this in one day. It's going to take you forever to get this amount of money. And in my mind, I've always said to myself that I want to keep the money that I earn. I want to be able to utilize it and put something into it. I've always had a lot of good direction, a lot of drive, but I was always caught up with misinformation. There was too much room for subjectivity, and I wasn't focused on the objectivity and the facts. So I was caught up not only with my dishonesty and the dishonesty that surrounded me, but just the whole fallacy, the whole idea and the concept and the icons. Growing up where I grew up was very difficult because you look at people iconically for the wrong reasons. Like the more disturbed and the more loud and the more attention seeking you are, the more popular you are where I come from.
So during the transition that you were from when you were living in Brooklyn, etc., and then to become who you became today, the journey that you faced, well, obviously it must have been a very challenging one. Nothing come easy to those who really want to be able to make things happen. But what have you, I mean, if someone would ask you, Anthony, I'm going through a very difficult challenge right now. Can you teach me step by step? What did you do to be able to reach your happiness? I mean, obviously happiness is different to many people, but for you, what would you, how would you coach them?
If I could generalize this, because every situation is different, just like our DNA or our retina scan, and our fingerprint, it's different. But it has very similar characteristics. What I would say is try to understand where this comes from. Try to separate the feelings from the action. Try not to too quick to respond to things and allow your feelings to get in front of decisions. Try to be prudent. One of the hardest things I've learned how to do is just to be quiet.
Okay.
Yeah, that was difficult. But you learn a lot more when you're quiet. You communicate a lot better when you're quiet. The person responds to you better when they're quiet. You make them more comfortable. So again, it all depends on how much thirst and hunger this person has for the knowledge that comes with it, because then comes the epiphanies, the awareness, the energy levels, being able to put something that's intangible into a level so you could understand the difference between the different angers, rage, almost getting to rage. And if you can see these things happening in front of you, then you can control them.
Now, if you go back to the being quiet, a lot of people feel silence is very uncomfortable. So how can you teach them to say that, you know what, if you don't say a word, sometime not saying a word is the best form of communication? How would you convince them? Because some people say, okay, so who's supposed to talk now, me or you?
Interesting. When I look at how to create good content and how to keep the audience captivated, you have to promise them something in the beginning so that they can continue to watch at the end.
Correct.
So we have to reward people in order to keep them attentive or captivated, and you do that by showing them the value of what will happen when you do this. And you do it by example when you give them analogies that they can follow in their language. Okay. So you have to be specific to who you're talking to. Can't speak to anyone generalized, because then you start sounding like everyone else.
Correct. Exactly. So throughout now, if let's say you would have to go back into time, jump into the DeLorean, into time machine, and then go back into the 1970s, what would you say were your best moments and your worst moments?
My best moments when I was at that age were probably when I was watching TV.
Okay.
For some reason or another, when they wanted alone time, the adults, they would put me in a room somewhere and they would stick me in front of the TV. The TV is not as informational as it is now when I went to school. You understand? So the limited channels. Fox wasn't even around. You know, like I said, there was only a handful of channels, and I was stuck to watching whatever was available at the time. So, but I enjoyed watching something new. That's when I started learning that I like things that are new. I don't like to be redundant. I don't like to see things more than once. That's why I don't have favorites.
Well, would you say that at that time, the quality of the content that was shared on TV is much better than the crap we hear today?
I can't say that. I can't say that because with technology comes a better visual. If you're talking about the acting itself, I don't think acting has progressed or regressed at all. I think acting is acting. The storylines back then were more interesting because I was unfamiliar with life trials as it is. But now everything seems like I've done it before only because of my experience.
I see.
That's a hard question to answer, but you got to look at it from both sides of the fence here.
But when you see the news that was then and what it is now, with all the lies and all the propaganda, do you feel that at that time in the 1970s, they were giving the news as is and not trying to embellish it or to make it worse as what it is, versus now on how they kind of try to manipulate the population?
I think they've always tried to manipulate the population. I think ever since the beginning of capitalism is when this all began, whenever that started. Because there's an idea behind the demographics and the psychographics of a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, how does that relate to us as people? We do what we see, we do what we hear. You know, we're easily encouraged because we're creatures of habit. And they know this already because that's why they hire psychiatrists and psychologists to do these things. But that being said, I don't, the only thing that I believe increased was the lack of classiness. I think there's a lack of responsibility. I think that we've taken it too far as the ability to speak, you know, the right that you have to speak. I believe that has two sides to it. So I do believe that they've been doing this for the longest. What I do know now is that sex and controversy and chaos sells a lot more than it did back then. Back then it was to a minimum. Not to say that it wasn't happening. It's publicized a lot more now.
I see. But then back then, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have WhatsApp, we didn't have all those apps that what we see today. So the sharing of information was less likely to happen then to what it is now. So but basically how we express ourselves, as you mentioned, now if let's say we say one wrong thing on social media, either we're censored, or if our boss or our employer see that, then chances of getting fired. So now everyone is too oversensitive. We say one word and then basically it's the end of the world. Oh my God, you say that. Generation Z is like, oh geez, I mean, I cannot believe you say that. Now I feel offended. So all of this kind of like new mentality, do you feel that it is impacting our new generation?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. You see, the thing is that not everybody deserves a microphone. And social media has given everyone a microphone. Without proper information, without the right knowledge, without the right representation, it's a lot of nonsense. So you have to kind of divide this between what is informational, what is relevant, and what is irrelevant. I'll give you an example. See, but this becomes the responsibility of the individual. Like if I look at social media and I go through like whatever, all these things are growth. Everything that I watch, if I just go through the shorts, growth, investment, education, information that I personally have checked out and make sure that their information is valid. Okay. So again, to each his own. Some people like to spend all day watching cat videos and watching people fall on the floor and do these things. And some people, you get to create your own niche of thought because that's what they're doing. They're following your algorithms and the things that you like are the things that they're going to show you. If you don't like certain things, they're not going to show you these things. So again, what's happening now is that it's oversaturated, exactly what you're saying. And because the sensitivity level has escalated because you gave the wrong mouths a microphone.
I see.
Yeah.
And in your own journey, if let's say someone would come to you, Anthony, and try to really, they get inspired by the changes that you've established in your own private life, and the man that you've become today versus the man that you were. Now, you would say that I never really regret the things I did, but I mostly regret the things I didn't do, which is sometimes you have had dreams and you wanted to do certain things, but where you were, your environment in Brooklyn, whatever it is, they didn't really let you get inspired and really follow your dreams as much as you would do if you were in Beverly Hills, California, where opportunities were much better then or there versus where they were in your neighborhood. So you would say that probably, I mean, how would you advise someone to say, you know what, focus more on the things that you want to be able to accomplish. Don't be influenced by the naysayers, because naysayers, they're everywhere.
It's very difficult. Again, there's no one blueprint or prototype that we can follow to help an individual, but to understand them better, you have to get them into a comfort zone so that they can actually tell you the truth. They don't, in order for you to understand the problem, obviously you have to go to the root of the matter and understand where the problem is coming from. You have to be able to want to do something about it and troubleshoot this. And how do you do that? When it comes to wants and needs, I try to tell people to combine them. Make your needs and wants one. You need to learn how to want your needs, because your needs are things that you cannot live without. But you also have to have the right sense of what these needs are. Are they really relevant to your life or not? Or they are things that you're adding that create extra weight in the basic duties of everyday life. You have to love yourself. And what I do is I give very harsh examples, like, how could you possibly love someone if you don't love yourself? You're not giving them the best of yourself.
Right.
If you really love someone, you care about someone, you want to give them the best version of yourself. And if you stop halfway in anything that you're trying to do, or you don't give it your best, then you're cheating the people that you love, including yourself, of the best person that you can be and what you can offer. And that usually has a lot of changes, change of attitude, tone of voice, but it's a lot more of awareness. You have to be aware of your surroundings and the role that you play when you say or you do something. So in effect, the things you do and your things you say, they have to match. And when you have a balance like that, that's where it starts.
Well, that is definitely inspiring, Anthony. Now, if let's say you would have to advise our listeners of this podcast and tell them that if anyone has the capacity, or I would say the brain, to be able to achieve their goals, no matter where you are, don't be discouraged. You know, you may be in a project age, you may be in different, like, dangerous environment. How can someone detach themselves from where they are and not really look at their life as being, as you said, you were in prison, you were felt like, I could not get out of here, I'm stuck, I'm in that environment, and this is going to be my life for the rest of my life, basically, if whatever is left of it. So how do you help people detach themselves from their existing environment and take the chance, take a risk to be able to achieve what they want to achieve?
Going a little bit back to the parental thing, now I remember something key that I was going to tell you. The gaps that the parents do not fill are very important, because sometimes they tell us what not to do, but they don't tell us why, or they don't explain that there is a different side to it. And I'll give you an example.
Go ahead.
Being stubborn is a word that we hear a lot. You're stubborn, you're stubborn, you're stubborn. But what they don't understand is there's a positive side to being stubborn. When you're stern and you're stubborn on a good idea, that's what makes it come to light.
Correct.
So they discourage us by not explaining that there is a time and place and an appropriate action and reaction to everything that is done. And when you understand what to do, because you're not allowing distractions, like you said, which are feelings, and you understand that courage has a lot to do with the things that you don't know, fear of the unknown, that's what keeps people stubborn. They don't want to change their ways because they don't understand that their comfort zone might be intimidated, their comfort zone. So I always tell people, look, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, allow yourself time before you make a decision to assess it, but assess it the right way. Assess it for what it's worth, what it means to you, pros and cons. I do this thing called a SWOT analysis that I learned in business, which is list your strength, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So I use a business model a lot. to look at life, because when I remove the feelings or when I remove the emotions to certain things, things go a lot smoother and a lot better.
So where do you put the concept of fear in the mix? Because you said try to be comfortable being uncomfortable. But does that mean that you should not look at fear the same way that other people do? Because fear stops you in your track and you're not really, you're too afraid of the unknown. So is that what comfortable is versus uncomfortable?
I think fear can be your friend. I think, again, when we're explaining things as we're young, we're not giving both sides of the story. So we look at fear as our enemy when fear can be our friend. It could be the enabler in a positive way. Another word, like the word enabler, when people say you're an enabler, usually is used in negative context. But unfortunately, enable is just to push someone. Whether you push them negatively or positively, it's up to the context. You know what I'm saying? So I tell people, listen to the context. Do not look at the action as one-dimensional. Do not allow yourself to be subjected to the first thing that you think about. Give yourself another alternative. Give yourself another perspective. If you can, it's easy said than done.
Yes, exactly.
But when you start practicing it and things start picking up and you start getting these epiphanies, these oohs and ahs, that's when you start realizing, hey, you have to help yourself and put yourself in these situations. The flags are always there. You just have to pay attention and be aware of them. And again, that's another word, flags. When they say flags, right away, it's negative. Flags are not always negatives.
There are green flags and red flags.
Correct.
You see, and the people you always hear red flags in dating, red flags in this, red flags in that, but no one really focused too much on the green. And let me tell you the way that human nature is that we want to help people avoid making mistakes that we made so they can learn from them and they could basically progress much faster. But also, if we always throw all negativity to people, there's nothing left for them to see if there's anything left positive. They only think there's only negative. Because are we as a society too afraid to sugarcoat everything and to make people believe that, oh yeah, the sky is blue, sun is shining, etc., versus making them open their eyes to what reality is all about? So like, the Wachowski brothers from The Matrix, people love the movie because of the action sequences, but they don't realize the message of The Matrix, that it's more of a metaphysical message, that people don't perceive it, that we live in an illusion. We are not, we believe that, okay, we're humans, we pinch ourselves, we feel the pain, etc. But at the same time, we don't really see reality the way that we're supposed to see it. And we perceive things that we think it's there, but it is not. It's what we construct in our mind, and just like anything else. So how does that differentiate from how we're supposed to live our life today and move on with our dreams?
Sometimes we get involved in relationships that alter our path. And sometimes too quickly without our developing our inner selves first. So when you're not developed fully and someone comes into your life, you start adapting to the relationship that you and that person have. So that kind of changes your drive. Sometimes it enhances your drive, but it's never the same.
Okay.
So relationships are very important. But the way things are right now, it doesn't matter if people learn a lie or not. The information is being accepted regardless. Nowadays, nobody's being held accountable.
True.
So if there is no accountability, then it doesn't make a difference. I give you an example. Back in the days, in rap music, they would glorify the drug dealer. Mm-hmm. Within the last decade or so, they're starting to glorify the drug user. So that's made it acceptable for kids to be on drugs now because it's a norm that was created. And we can say that about a lot of different touchy subjects, but that's what we mean by talking about the sensitivity level. It's gotten to a point where, okay, look, a person that's been working old school and will tell a millennial, hey, I've been working in the same job for 30 years, 30, 40 years. I walked, I never was late, I never did this. And then the millennial will turn around and say, why? Now, the other person will be like, you dare question my loyalty? Yeah, why? Why'd you stay stuck doing the same thing? You ever thought about management?
Mhm.
Were you happy doing this for 40 years? Yes, I was taking care of my family. Okay, now what do you have? You see, back in the days, if I questioned my parents, that might turn out to be a different outcome. I wasn't allowed to question my parents because they would say, but I would say, why? And they would say, because I said so.
Yeah.
Now kids are controlling the parents, and parents have been just giving them these electronics and say, here, whatever, just shut up, you know?
Exactly. That's a good one.
Yeah, kids have more access to things that we don't have, but it's being used for the wrong reasons. And I'm a prime example because when I'm on social media and I look at TikTok and I look at Instagram, everything that I do is positive growth management. I've learned how to fix people's credit. I've learned how to contribute something as a barter in life. You have to have some type of value in life to offer people in order for you to succeed. You can't keep living off other people's achievements and other people's values or beliefs. You have to have a sense of individuality, you know, a sense of purpose. Um, like I said, we are heading into no man's land. And I believe that wholeheartedly because nobody's being held accountable. And what we used to think was disturbing back then is acceptable in society today. Prime time has changed, right? You would never hear the curse words on TV. Now you hear them all over the place. Prime time was 8 o'clock. You know, 8 o'clock, it's time to get the kids, you know, to bed. We're about to start showing a possible ankle here. You understand?
That is actually a good point. But is it also the entitlement mentality that
Oh,
made people or made the younger generation think that they deserve this, they deserve that, without really working hard like we did, Anthony, in our younger years, in the 1970s? Now it's like, oh, I want to be this given to me. I want that. I want a new iPhone. I want a new tablet. I want a new car. So there's not really any more work ethics in that generation, and because of
absolutely.
that we kind of like, okay, so are they the one who's going to be managing this planet and managing this country? What's going to be left of it?
As scary as it sounds, my daughter is 16 years old. As scary as it sounds, maybe it is time that younger generations start questioning the old habits. The old habits didn't work. It wouldn't have led us to where we at right now. And we have to, you understand? So we should start questioning things. I am a person that I'm entitled to know the truth.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. Yeah.
but the truth is not what I'm not waiting for the truth to come to me. I pursue the truth. This is the difference between a leader and a follower, that if you are in control of your own destiny, you do whatever it takes to align yourself with what is factual. And once I started doing that, things started changing for me a lot better because I no longer care about things that I'm not supposed to care. They're not relevant to what I'm doing. Now, as far as my role in society, yeah, but I'm not scared of the young guys. I'm not, because the truth of the matter is it was the young people that made the difference in the voting last year. So you can't neglect the power that they have.
Oh, no,
But
it's
at
not,
this,
no, it's not about neglect. It's about wondering what is their priority. What are they focused primarily on, to really make a positive change to this world, or what's in it for me? You see, because again, entitlement is personal. I mean, they feel that I'm entitled for myself. I'm not entitled for a friend. Oh, he deserved this or he deserved that. No, it's all about me. It's all about what I deserve, what I feel that I'm supposed to be given. And this is also that mentality that can hinder progress to a certain extent. Now,
it can.
I don't deny the fact that you're right. We need a fresh mentality. We need a better way of thinking, of progressing in this world, of seeing how life's supposed to go. Because the old mentality, as you said, didn't work. So why continue making the same mistake and expecting different results? This is the definition of insanity. So again, the young generation can definitely contribute to something positive, but at the same time, at what cost?
Well, look, I'm a firm believer that in order to get somewhere, you have to ask the right question. So when you teach people how to ask the right questions, and you're searching, your research has to be in line with what you're doing. I'll give you an example. I just finished saying that kids have a right to know. They should be able to question things. But when they question the wrong things, this is where the problem happens. I'll give you an example. Would you agree that a large or maybe more than the majority of the kids born on this earth are not here on purpose?
Yes.
Think about what I'm saying. So you selfishly bring a kid into this world without even asking them. They didn't even have a choice.
True.
So the other side to the entitlement is what you did to this kid. You bring this kid into a world that is confused. You brought into this world that's full of chaos. That was not the way you grew up back then. So think about these two sides to it. They are entitled.
That's yeah. You know what? You put it this way, but can you say that the parents are bringing kids into this world to be able to continue their legacy? So yeah, it may be a selfish reason. Okay, I agree to that extent, but is it also to be able to offer a life, which is if we have the capability of bringing a new life into this world, we also are selfless because we know that we are responsible for that human being. We know that we're responsible to give them shelter, food, everything that's the basic needs. So despite the fact of this selfishness becomes selflessness, we still have some kind of responsibility towards our obligation to this world. We want our legacy to continue.
Absolutely. But again, just because we have, and it is a responsibility in society to continue the legacy, but now we're dealing with a different animal. We're dealing with a lot more openness. This information is so available that we can no longer guide our children the way we used to. Like, I'll let you know when the time comes. Well, guess what? The time is right now. Because you cannot hide the truth, because then you'll be playing with the trust, and once you play with trust, you know what happens. So you have to understand that a lot of parents do not speak the language that's happening right now with this youth. It was easier to detect back then because the gaps in age and experience and knowledge was not so far apart. It was more gradual, the change. The change now, my mother used to say, why are you listening to that music? That music sounds like noise. I would never say that to my child.
Yeah.
I would never say that. I would say, hey, let me hear the type of music that you listen to. Encourage them to be open with you and let you know what's going on before they do it behind your back. I have open conversations about drugs and marijuana and sex, which were one of the hardest things to do with a young female. She's 16 years old. But I had no choice because I'd rather she hear it from me than she hear it
from the streets.
Bad information from anywhere else. It doesn't matter where she got it from. But again, look, these kids, it's not that these kids are smarter. It's not that these kids are more intelligent. It's that their knowledge level is their data. What they do with the data before it turns into information and they process it, that's another thing. But the data and the stuff that's out there right now, it's ridiculous. We both would agree that if we had this information when we were young, where would we be right now?
That's actually a very good point. Well, that is all the time we have for today's podcast. I really do appreciate the time that you took out of your very busy schedule to join us, Anthony. Now, thank you for participating and inspiring our many listeners. Now, we hope that you have all enjoyed today's episode. I'm very excited about the many upcoming guests we have scheduled for the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories, just like the one you listened to today. Now, here are a few concluding words of wisdom. Most don't realize it, and few stop and wonder. Yet, from the extremely limited perspective afforded by your physical senses, it is impossible to know what you really, really want in material or circumstantial terms, because there's always more. That's what you could be asking for than what you can even see. Now, more insight, more rewards, more fun. Now, of course, you have ideas, and by all means, you should pursue your material and circumstantial dreams. But as you knock on doors and turn over stones, perpetually think to yourself, this or better, I will make it happen. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalak, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.